So, for the last couple of weeks, maybe a little over a month, I've been seeing my dog in places that she wasn't. Like, I see her upstairs in the kitchen when I know for a fact she was downstairs in the basement, and there's no way she could have snuck past me on the stairs. This has been happening almost daily, multiple times a day, any time of day. The first time this happened was July 18th. It was noon, and I had just let my dog back inside after I took her out. Normally, she walks off to wherever this time. She went to her cage to drink some water. I could see her lapping at her water bottle as I walked to my room. Again, I could hear her getting water. So when I walked into my room, I see her laying next to my bed, just looking at me. Again, I know my dog, so there was no way some random dog walked into my house and got comfortable that just so happens to look like her. I call her name, asking how she got in here before me. At that point, I'm slightly on edge because it's just not possible. In response to me calling out her name, she comes to my door and barks softly. When I turned to look at her and back to what I saw, it's gone. Another time, this is during the day again, my dog is laying in her bed asleep or half asleep. Now her bed is in sight of where I'm at in the kitchen due to us having a half wall. I'm on FaceTime with a friend and I have my phone propped up in front of me. It's on a small shelf, which is a bit higher than me, so it gives a perfect view of the doorway to the living room. Now my dog is in front of me, laying down, and I ruffle a bag which accidentally gets her attention. Due to where my phone is, my friend can't see my dog come in from the den into the kitchen. I see her, and at first she sits by my leg, begging, thinking, I have a snack of some food. But then my friend greets my dog now. First of all, my friend can't see my dog due to my phone being on the shelf slightly above me. There's no way she can see my lower body. And my dog isn't big in the slightest. She's a medium-sized dog. Secondly, I'm looking dead at my dog, so at that point I have chills. And I ask her, how can she's right there by my leg? My dog faces the doorway to the living room, and I follow her gaze as my friend says, no, she's right there, behind you. Now my dog just stares at it, and I quickly grab my phone and show my friend my dog is right here. I know I'm not crazy or my mind is playing tricks on me, because I'm not the only one this has happened to. We only have one dog. She's very hard to miss and easily identifiable by her having white fur, combing her right paw, almost like she's wearing her sock. And this lookalike looks the exact same way. I've unintentionally interacted with several times, like called it my dog's name in confusion. It doesn't do anything but look at me or whomever encounters it. I'm not the only one in the house this has happened to. I don't know what it is or why it's here. Girlfriend and I are both 23 years old. We purchased our first home back in February and have been moved in for about 4 months now. We've both had paranormal experiences in the past. My girlfriend's in relation to her grandmother passing, and mine occurring at multiple stages in my life, in multiple different forms, and with seemingly multiple different intentions. Now here's the situation. When we initially moved in, there were no problems. It was all good. After about a month, we adopted a 1-year-old cat, all black, Salem. Still, things were fairly normal. Maybe the odd occurrence here or there, but we reasoned it to be that we got a new cat and weren't used to him living in the home yet. So weird sounds and sightings were most likely just him. About a month ago, we adopted a second cat, also 1-year-old and also black, Selena. This is when we started noticing more strange things happening. It started with black shadows. I've seen these before many times in my life, just usually larger. These shadows are small, almost creature-like instead of human-like. We started seeing them out of the corner of our eyes, perched on ledges, chairs, tables, couches, etc. Well, after a few weeks, the shadows became more mobile. We began seeing them move past our feet while standing in the house, run past our legs while going up the stairs, jump off a seat when we go to sit down, etc. Well, the other day, I experienced an aspiration. We recently redid our bedroom, new paint, new trim, etc. I was putting our stuff back in the closet after the remodel when I saw a cat. Not a shadow, but a cat sitting on top of my safe in the back of our closet. Typically, I don't do double takes. I've learned in my life that there's no point. It won't still be there. But this time I did. Being a full-on cat and not just a shadow or weird figure. Of course, when I looked again, it was gone. My girlfriend was in the room and noticed me do this, so I had to explain it. The cat appeared all black, just like our kitties. But our cats have yellow or gold eyes. They're Bombay cats. This one's eyes were white. And not like the white of a human's eyes, no, but like a white light on a foggy night. Almost as if they were glowing, but without actually giving off any visible light. And no pupils that I noticed. It seems like a lot to have gathered from a quick glance, but we've been picking up on this entity for a good few weeks now, and the image of that cat in my closet is vivid in my mind. On top of this, my girlfriend has recently been experiencing a borrower's phenomenon, specifically with her vapes. She owns 3 of the same vapes. Just about a month ago, one of them went missing. A week or so later, so did a second. She's been using the third, which doesn't work very well. Last week, I overheard her ask aloud if anything had taken her vapes to please return them and take the less functional one in their place. Well, later that night we had to run out. My girlfriend grabbed a shirt out of a spare closet in the spare bedroom. A closet that has been untouched since we moved in. She didn't end up wearing the shirt and placed it on her makeup table. Again, this closet and shirt have been untouched for 4 months. When we arrived home later that evening, we found the vape she had been using, the third less functional one, to be missing, along with the other 2. But then, there it was, wrapped up inside that shirt that hadn't been touched in 4 months and had been hanging in a closet. Was the original vape that went missing, battery dead. A few hours later, we found the second vape in an obvious location. The third vape that went missing when those 2 returned, it's still missing. It's like whatever had taken those 2 vapes felt bad and genuinely replaced them and took the less functional one instead. We're starting to believe that the cat lives within the crawl space in our basements. To explain, our home is a split level. Under the living room is a 4-foot tall crawl space. Under the rest of the house, a full 8-foot basement. The crawl space is accessible through a full-sized door in the basement. This used to be Salim's, and still is, favourite place in the home. But he treats it differently now. Originally, we would let him in and he would stay and play or nap in there for hours. Now when we let him in, he goes to the very back corner only for a few minutes, and then leaves and begins playing with his toys in the basement instead of the crawl space. But it's different. It's like he's playing with something else, not just him and his little mouse toys. It's strange because I'm not joking, it's his favourite place. He will go stand in front of that door and meow non-stop to be let inside. He loves it, but he no longer sticks around like he used to. It's almost as if he's going in there for something, like he's asking, please can you let my friend out to play? Not, please can I go inside and play? So far, this entity has not brought any malicious behaviour with it. No mischief, and accidents have not increased. Our animals' behaviour hasn't changed. Our houseplants are very healthy, etc. The only perhaps mischievous behaviour is the disappearance of the vapes. However, when requested that the vapes be returned and that the less functional one be taken, just that happened. This makes me want to believe that this entity does not mean harm, but is simply trying to peacefully coexist with us. The reason I am hesitant is because I know, and partially from experience, that entities will disguise themselves. Larger demons and poltergeists may disguise themselves as lesser entities, specifically ones they know you will take kindly to, as an attempt to earn your trust, as well as grow stronger. We have been trying to avoid acknowledging this entity within the home, just in case, as I said, it is a higher entity in disguise as a lesser entity. We do not want it to gain power from our acknowledgement or acceptance. That said, so far it has given no hints of being a malicious entity, other than the vape disappearance, but it cooperated with us on that endeavour. I would also like to think that if it were a malicious entity, our cats would pick up on this, most specifically Salem, the one who we believe has befriended the spirit cat. I also have, on only a couple occasions, seen a larger shadow entity. This one, human-sized. However, most of the time there was also a tall lamp, chair covered in clothes, etc., sitting next to where I saw the humanoid entity. So I've just assumed this one to be my mind playing tricks on me. I guess it could possibly Spirit Cat's owner, or possibly Spirit Cat's true form. I'm less concerned about this figure though, as again, I think it was just my imagination. I apologise for the long story, but I just need some advice. Does anyone see any potential that this may be a more powerful entity, attempting to gain our trust and eventually cause harm? I mean, I can't imagine a spirit's cat would have any interest in a nicotine vape. The disappearance/reappearance of these items is the only thing still boggling my mind, especially since her original vape returned with only a couple hours of her asking, and as stated, returned wrapped up in a shirt that had been unworn for 4 months and hanging in a closet. It's like whatever returned the vape knew she would find it in that shirt. She went to hang it up later. I believe we're doing the correct thing by not acknowledging it, and to be honest, even once we're confident it is just a simple cat, I'm not sure we will ever truly acknowledge it. I've experienced what can happen in the past by doing so, not only with the entity at hand, but with entities who may be nearby waiting as well. Acknowledging or accepting beings from the other realms always comes with a long list of risks. My main concern is whether there is risk by not attempting to get rid of it. I'd also like to know if anyone sees my cat as possibly being at risk. Salem, the cat we believe to have befriended the spirit cat, is the best cat I've ever met. He's loving, affectionate, kind and respectful of our home. He would never damage anything or do anything that he thought would upset us. He waits at the door for us when we come home from work, sleeps in between us at night. I just haven't ever met a cat like him, and I would be beyond devastated if something were to happen to him at the hands of this shadow cat entity, or whatever it might be. I'm a moderately typical teenager from Japan, male. Ever since I can remember, I have throughout my lifetime had recurring encounters with some strange people, be it in terms of looks or behaviour. These encounters can happen anywhere from a week's space to several months, and it always seems like when I do, it was their intention to meet me. My most recent one was on my way home from school. During my walk, I was looking down at my phone for a short moment, about to text one of my friends I planned to have over at my house later. As I looked up, a young man looking like he was in his 20s was approaching me, a few meters ahead. This confused me for a minute, as it was a straight and fairly long path ahead. I thought to myself that while I may have been looking at my phone, I would surely have noticed him coming from the corner of the path a good length away. Or at least, I expected him to be closer to that corner. But there he was, approaching from the middle, as if he had appeared from thin air. His hair was dark brown, a bit unkempt but still good looking, and he had green eyes. His clothes were fairly ordinary too, keeping a sort of laid-back summer style to it. The most remarkable thing about him was his tattoo, or mark per se. A black line running from his left chin and down underneath his shirt. As he got close enough for a conversation, he stopped me and asked for my name. When I told him, he said that he'd heard about me before. This confused me as I'm not exactly a celebrity, but I thought nothing more of it. We then had some boring small talk, but he genuinely seemed pretty cheerful. Just as he was about to take off, he told me that I should probably wait for my friend. He didn't give me much of a chance to respond to this before walking off in the direction he came from. I thought about what he said and turned around to walk back to school. I glanced behind my back, but not long after, only to find that he was nowhere to be seen. As I made it back to my school, I sure enough found my friend waiting by the gate. She apparently thought we were going to walk to my place together and had been waiting for me for quite a long time. I apologized and we began walking, and well, that's the end of it. I didn't tell her about the encounter, but I thought about it when she left. I didn't tell him or hint about my friend at all, so how would he have known? These types of encounters have kept on happening throughout my life, sometimes very frequently, and I don't know why. These people I meet just seem too unreal and usually know something I never told them about, which leads me to believe these people aren't human at all. I was rock climbing with two other guys in Colorado and was belaying one of them when the two of us on the ground heard something weird. The commands we used to communicate that we are safe at the top of the route are name of the guy on the ground, off belay, which prompts the belayer to unclip the rope from his belay device so the climber can pull slack out of the rope. The response to that command is name of guy at the top of the route, belay off. The climber was approximately 40 meters up on a 50-meter route. I didn't know this at the time. The rope stopped moving, which isn't uncommon when someone is having a hard time with a move or is setting up an anchor, which is what I thought was going on. Then we heard it. A voice that sounded way closer to the ground, like close enough we would have had a shouting conversation, and way further left off route of where the climber should have been. It said, Tommy sticks, off belay. I looked at the other guy in our climbing party who was just as confused as I was. He said to me, what the fuck was that? And we discussed where the climber should be at this time and that we shouldn't be able to hear him that well. The rope still wasn't moving, but I decided to keep him on belay. I figured it would be best to keep him safe and just feed slack through my belay device in the event that it wasn't him. Turns out it wasn't. A few moments later, the rope started moving again, later followed by a faint, syllable-counted Tommy sticks off belay that sounded way more like what it should have. We didn't really think anything of it, but we had been travelling down the wall and hit a few routes without seeing anyone. We also had a friend just a few months ago that burned in on a route when someone took him off belay when he wasn't safe. I remember seeing a video of a hiker or rancher or something walking down the road when he hears a voice of a woman calling him off the road. The guy stops to try to figure out what's going on, then just gets out of there because of how weird it was. Is there a specific cryptid that mimics the voice of a person? This happened when I was only about 6 or 7 years old, but it's burned into my memory. I still remember exactly what the rooms looked like, and unfortunately, due to some mental illnesses I have, memory issues, and don't remember much of my life at all, except a general idea of what's happened. But this I remember. I grew up in central Georgia. I had an aunt and uncle that lived in Macon at the time, and would come for a big family visit for my dad's side. There was an absolutely beautiful two-story abandoned house next door. It was old, very old. Us kids always were creeped out by it, and said it was haunted. We even saw shadow figures in the windows and the curtains move. Well, the family decided to go explore it. I wasn't particularly excited. We go inside and it's gorgeous and still fully furnished. There's a stairwell up to the second story. It's enclosed with two doors halfway up, no landing, and directly across from each other. My whole family heads all the way upstairs while one cousin stays downstairs. Me and my other older decided to check out the door on the left. It's a library, a fancy one. It smells like mildew and old books. We walk around looking for a few minutes and suddenly start hearing loud whispering. I don't know how else to explain it. It's coming from the stairwell or the room. It's not our family. We can also hear them. So we open the door to the opposite room. It was a bathroom with a clawfoot tub. My cousin walks in first, with me peeping around behind her. I'll never forget what we saw next. There were two skeletons laying foot to head in the empty tub, whispering to each other. We froze for a second until they both turned and looked at us. My cousin immediately threw me over her shoulder and ran fast as hell back to our aunts. We never told them what we saw, but my oldest cousin asked why we were whispering and was very confused when we told her we weren't. All the adults just felt generally creeped out. This will probably be relatively short, as there's only been a few occurrences. There's a bathroom door in my house you can never completely open. You can open it all the way, only for it to swing back to about halfway open. Once it reaches this position, it doesn't swing back and forth, just rests. I don't believe it's due to an offset door, as it's only been happening the past couple months. There's also a sink that has a touch sensor, and while I was putting away dishes, it came on suddenly. This, of course, could have just been a glitch, but it has happened maybe 2 or 3 times. Another time, when I was doing something not so smart, aka standing on a counter, I fell back and landed on an open dishwasher, and happened to land on the silverware basket. This had forks and knives facing upwards, but I had not a single mark on my legs. A bad choice I also made was trying to swallow a pretty large marshmallow whole. At first, I was fine, but it of course got stuck and I started choking. I tried just calmly walking to the kitchen to get water, and almost there I fell and couldn't get back up. By some miracle, it finally managed its way down, and I spent a while just sitting on the floor confused. I don't know how or why it came unstuck, or why most of these besides the door have happened in the kitchen. So, I'm 18, male, and this just happened. I live in a 2-story house, and my room is adjacent to a room that in turn has a balcony which has plants and stuff. I grow a shit ton of plants. I usually fumble around them at night before going to sleep. The balcony overlooks a part of our lawn that has a circular walkway around it. And usually, my dad takes nighttime strolls in the garden just to clear up for the night. There's a row of 5 windows and a door in the adjacent room, all glass and wood, and each with their respective mosquito net doors. They look into the balcony as they connect my rooms adjacent one to the balcony. My dad was walking outside. Anyone on the lawn can actually see if someone's at the balcony or the window. Right now, just before my dad asked, "Why were you standing at the door on the balcony? You've got exams. Keep your mind off your plants." Don't loiter around plants at night. I wasn't. I usually do visit plants on my balcony before sleeping, but today I hadn't gone to the balcony. I was in my room studying. My mom was downstairs watching TV, and my dad was outside strolling. We don't have anyone else living in my house, and we live in a very quiet and wooded street. On the 1st of June 2008, I moved with my children into a big old farmhouse in the country. This old house was beautiful, high ceilings and lots of room for all the children to play. From the very first visit, strange things happened. My youngest, who was a toddler at the time, was laying on the lobby floor and she was playing with something that was making her giggle. Her hands were straight up in the air and she was talking with it. She pointed up at the ceiling and said, "Look at it, Mummy." I was freaked completely out. I was in a hurry and had to get more boxes moved, so huddled the three youngest into the car. As I drove up the old private road, my youngest kept waving out her side of the window, laughing and saying, "I'll be back, I'll be back." I watched her through my mirror, but only stopped the car when her brother and sister got freaked out. I asked her gently, "Who are you talking to?" She replied, "Little girl." I was spooked enough, but then she said, "She wants me to stay and play." I had no doubts that she saw something and was playing. She seemed happy and unafraid though. The others were scared at the time. This was the first of many things that happened in that old house and its grounds. It was a bright sunny day. The rays were streaming through the windows, lighting the house up, making the place look wonderful. My husband was in Australia at the time, and so I logged on the internet and was chatting via webcam with him. He was smiling and waving. He pointed and was saying hi to what he thought was my daughter. I said to him, "Who are you talking to?" "They're all upstairs playing." He was laughing and continued to wave, saying, "She's behind you and is now hiding." I looked around and returned to the cam, replied with goosebumps, "No one's there." He pointed again and said, "Shh, she's gone into that room behind you." I said, "That door is closed." But anyway, got up and opened the door, looked around the room, came back out and said, "No one is there." My husband was adamant he saw a little girl and admitted he could not see her clearly, but acknowledged it resembled my daughter, who was about 8 years old at the time. Now, me being the way I am, proceeded to go up to the old windy stairs and could hear all of the children playing. The older lads are on their PlayStation, and the youngest three were in the girls' room playing with cards and trying to unravel their slinkies. I asked all of them had they been downstairs, even though I knew I would have heard them coming. They all said no, and to be completely frank, they were all engrossed with what they were doing. I went back to the computer and told my husband, "No, no one there. Everyone's upstairs." He swears to me to this day he saw a little girl with long hair, wearing a white dress, standing behind me, peeking as if she was shy. My husband's a skeptic, but he's adamant he saw a girl. After we moved in, there was this horrible smell that I just couldn't get rid of and seemed worse some days than others. The children thought it was the upstairs bathroom, but I believed and told them it was just the farm-type smells, but knew this smell was rancid and not the usual smell that you would get from the farm. I went through the house bit by bit, sniffing everywhere, and then after a while, I found exactly where it was coming from. It was a section of the floor. There were new carpets put down and no stains or accidents, etc. Well, one day when I was in the village, I had a conversation with an old fisherman who had lived in that area all of his life, and he got to quizzing me about how I liked the place. I was honest and told him it's great, but the smell from the farm is a bit much, and it's coming in the house too. He went on to say that he thought I was brave living up there on my own, and that a long time before, many residents prior to us, an old lady died in the house at the top of the stairs, and had not been found for some time. This was the exact section of the floor where I discovered the smell. Now, this old guy could well have been having a laugh and filling my head, but really sometimes I wonder if it were possible that some body fluids could have leaked down into that floorboards. Is it plausible? It was 9:30 in the evening, and I heard a slight commotion from upstairs. So I got up and made my way up to see what was going on. Halfway up the winding stairs, I called out, "What are you doing, boys? The others are asleep. Stop it now." My second eldest son, who was about 10 at the time, came and leant over the top banister and yelled out for me to come and see his older brother. I entered the bedroom with my three sons shared. My eldest was laying on his bed. I asked him, "What's happened? What's going on?" He said, "Nothing. It's the door. It won't close." "Ah, is that all?" I wondered, over, and closed the door with ease. "There you go. Now go to sleep. Love you. Good night." I was about to leave when his younger brother said, "No, Mum. The door flung him so hard he landed on his back on the bed. Now he won't touch the door." "Is this true?" I asked. "Yes." He went on to tell me the door would not close, so he shoved and swore at it. He went on to say the door flung open, catapulting him right onto his bed. So there he stayed, and someone else could close the door and turn off the lights from now on. My daughter, who was about 8 at the time, described an incident to me about what had happened to her while she was in the upstairs bathroom. She described how she watched an empty bath while listening to water noises that sounded like someone getting out of a filled bathtub. She said she then heard noises like someone's skin squeaking against the tub as they scrambled out. My oldest daughter, who was a teenager at the time, always told me even to this day she was afraid of this bathroom and would rather walk all the way down to the bottom bathroom rather than use the top one closest to the bedrooms. As I wrote this, I spoke to my girl, who is now 20 years of age, to get an accurate description of the incident. And she's just told me that she remembers it clearly to this day. She says she's a skeptic, but knows what she heard. I can find no other explanation for the noise. I could say it was the overactive imagination of an 8-year-old girl, but I don't think that was the case. My mind wanders in different directions, one of which is, could this have been whoever scrambling out of the bath and not quite making it for help, and only making it to the top of the landing, where they lay until they were found? I drifted off to sleep on the sofa while watching the TV. It was raining heavily outside and was therapeutic as it hit the windows. I had a nightmare and awoke suddenly, covered in perspiration, my t-shirt soaked right through. I heard a noise at the window, so with my heart still beating wildly in my chest, I got up to check. Nothing there. Must have been a deer? I closed the curtains and went back to the sofa, but as I sat down, ow! I pulled forward the neck of my shirt and saw something that truly terrified me. In a hurry, pulled off my shirt and was horrified, and I swear to you this is true. I was covered in long scratches. They went in all directions, but only from my breasts to the top of my navel. I sat there, mind racing, and came to the conclusion I must have done this to myself while having the nightmare. I grabbed my coat and wrapped myself in it. Still shaking, I tried to concentrate on the TV show, which was complete rubbish. My mind drifting to that terrifying dream. Stop thinking about it, I told myself. I was afraid, but more than that, it felt real. This didn't feel right, and the room had a heavy, dense, suffocating atmosphere to it. I eventually settled down, continued to watch TV, and remained awake for the next few hours, until the light came through the cracks in the heavy lined curtains. I made my way to have a shower before making the breakfast, and I jest you not, I counted the scratches and there were 13 full-length marks. I continued to dismiss this, and every time my mind would wander, I would occupy it. But I couldn't get that nightmare, which was of a satanic ritual, out of my head. And it also had 13 performance steps to it. This has never happened since. Then again, I never want to sleep on that sofa again. Burnside was a long, dark, creepy, unkept cottage. It had a big garage at the side and a large shed at the back. Way back over 47 years ago, police used bicycles and foot to patrol the streets, and if your village had an officer, you're one of the lucky ones. In this particular village, the local police officer had a report of a theft, and so he decided he would patrol the early hours of the morning on foot to catch the culprit. At 2 a.m., he set off on foot in his long coat and truncheon belted to his side. He crept around the village and then decided, well, Burnside has these large sheds. Maybe it was the owners, my parents, that were doing the stealing. After all, they have room to store these goods. He hid out over the road in the woods near to the old church. He made himself comfortable so he could get a bird's eye view. An hour had passed and then he saw something. It was a flicker of light. He watched, thinking, got you now, and waited for his moment. Making his way to the front of the premises to get a better look and to apprehend the person or persons, he was dumbfounded in what he witnessed. An old lady dressed in white linen, holding a single candlestick with a lit candle past each of the 5 windows. When she got to the first window, which was a second lounge room, she turned and faced the police officer through the small crisscross panes of glass. His words, "She looked right at me." The police officer didn't scare easy and stood his ground. Then from a closed door came a young female dressed in a white night dress. Her golden hair flowing over her shoulders as she ran up the path. The police officer called out, "Hey, stop, wait." He ran to catch her, but the young woman glided around the corner of the house and disappeared. The officer looked around the property and the surrounding burn and could see no trace nor hear anything, and the cottage remained in darkness. He decided these people were guilty and knocked loudly at the front out of anger. The family all woke with the commotion, and the youngest girl, who was only 4 at the time, me, listened to the ramblings of this policeman. He said, "I will sit every night till I catch you." He left, and the next day enlisted help from 2 other men, setting them up in different areas. All 3 men saw the same thing at the exact same time. The following day, the trusted police officer came back and told my parents what they had seen. The old cripple man of the house, my uncle, told the officer the story. You see, many years before the house was 2 separate cottages, and in one end lived an old woman and her beautiful daughter. The old cripple man pointed out through one of the windows to a hill. "See that hill there? An old road roller was parked and it was not braked properly, or the brake let go. It came thundering down into the side of the house, killing the girl instantly, and the old lady died from heart failure." He pointed to an old dark side unit, and on it sat a single candelabra. Castletown is a Scottish village, and a long time ago, witches used to gather in the old mill buildings to worship their master. On a late winter's night, a coven of 13 gathers around an old stone, after where they meet and greet one another, but this was not to last long. An old fisherman and a busybody wife decide this place was no place for such creepy goings-on, and they call the police. The 13 split ways and re-meet the following week at a different location, with the same area in Castletown. The 13 were annoyed and upset at the locals, but continued their rituals, laughing and dancing around the small fire in the alternative location. Weeks passed, and all was quiet in the village. All the gossip of the 13 passed, and the locals found new things to talk about. An old man from the village was out on a moonlit night because he and his wife had had a disagreement, so he took a walk. He walked around the old harbour, then headed up past where the old dump used to be. He was being careful because he knew there was a quarry, and it contained a deep hold of water. He could hear for miles on the calm night, and he did hear things. He heard a cry of a boy, "Help! Help! Help!" The old man headed toward the body of water, calling out as he went. The man heard splashing, gurgling, more splashing. Horrified, he ran across the quarries, broken stones, and got to the edge of the water. Nothing. The moon shone upon the water. It was as still as the night. Afraid and shaken, the old man heads for home and calls the police to report what he heard. A search was conducted, but nothing found. Once a year, on the very same night the 13 had met, if you're in that area, you can still hear the boy drown. The quarry is no longer there, and the dump is long gone too. Trees are planted there now, and still people report hear splashing, along with a boy's screams of help. Locals who remember the story blame the 13 for this cursed haunting.